Hi there. I'm glad you're here tonight. Before you settle in, take a slow breath. Let the room grow quiet around you. Maybe the lights are low. Maybe the world outside your window is already asleep. Wherever you're listening from, tell me in the comments later. I'd love to know what part of the world is drifting off with us tonight. Now imagine something. Beneath the surface of the ocean, far below the reach of sunlight, there is a world that has never seen dawn. No sunrise, no sky, no stars. Just endless dark water pressing down with a weight almost impossible to comprehend. We have mapped the moon in greater detail than this place. We have walked across deserts and climbed mountains. But below 6,000 meters of water, in trenches deeper than Everest is tall, something ancient still moves. Creatures with transparent heads, sharks that look unchanged since the time of dinosaurs, fish that glow red in a darkness so complete that light itself feels like a rumor, organisms that live where pressure would crush steel, and where oxygen is barely present at all. Tonight, we are not telling a horror story. We are descending slowly into the deepest, least understood part of our own planet. So, get comfortable, let your breathing soften, and as we begin our journey into the abyss, ask yourself a quiet question. If life can survive there, what else might be possible? Imagine you are standing on the shore late one evening. A gentle wind moves through the air. Waves roll in steadily. The surface of the water reflects the last faint trace of light lingering along the horizon. On that surface, everything appears familiar. The sea is a place of sunlight, of ships, of creatures swimming through clear blue water. But if you look more closely, if you allow your imagination to sink beneath that surface, you begin to see something else. Because the ocean does not end where light stops. It truly begins there. Humans often believe we understand this planet. We have climbed Mount Everest, walked on the moon, sent probes beyond the solar system. Yet according to estimates by NOAA, more than 80% of Earth's oceans remain unexplored in detail. We have clearer maps of the surface of Mars than of our own seafloor, and most of that mystery lies beneath the sunlight. If you descend slowly, the first layer you pass through is called the epipelagic zone, the sunlit layer. This is where sunlight still reaches. Phytoplankton photosynthesize. Fish swim in schools. Life follows the familiar rhythm of day and night, just as we do. Here, existence moves to the steady cadence of light and shadow. But as you dive deeper, around 200 meters, the light begins to fade. You enter the mesopelagic zone, also known as the twilight zone. Here, sunlight is no longer strong enough to support photosynthesis. It becomes only a faint blue haze above your head. The deeper you go, the more color disappears. Red, orange, yellow, all dissolve into darkness. At around 1,000 meters, natural light is almost completely gone. And from this point downward, the world beneath the sun truly begins. The bathypelagic zone, the midnight realm. There is no longer day or night, no sunrise or sunset. The temperature drops close to freezing. Pressure increases to hundreds of times that at Earth's surface. If you brought an empty box down to this depth, it would be crushed flat like a soda can under enormous force. At around 4,000 meters, as you enter the abyssal zone, the abyss, The world above has almost vanished entirely from the ocean's memory. There is no trace of light, no familiar motion of waves, only a vastness so immense that imagination struggles to grasp it fully. The seafloor here is not a field of towering cliffs as often depicted in films. Much of it stretches out like immense plains, abyssal plains, astonishingly flat, covered by fine sediment accumulated over millions of years. Tiny organic particles, the remains of microorganisms, fragments of plankton, all drift slowly downward from the layers above, like snow sinking endlessly through darkness. Scientists call this a marine snow. Imagine standing in an endless field under absolute night, with no sky above to look toward, snow that never ceases to fall. It is not cold in the way we understand cold, yet it is the primary source of nourishment for most life here, at this depth. Everything happens slowly, so slowly that time itself seems to stretch. A creature may take years to mature. A carcass may take months, even years, to decompose completely. In the abyssal zone, temperatures usually hover between 2 and 3 degrees Celsius. Pressure reaches around 400 times atmospheric pressure. That is equivalent to the weight of hundreds of automobiles pressing down on every square centimeter. And yet, the bodies of creatures that live here are not crushed. They do not possess air-filled cavities like we do. No lungs, no hollow spaces vulnerable to compression. Their cells are adapted to this immense force as though it were entirely natural. But if you continue downward, deeper still, the flat sea floor suddenly disappears. You are approaching ocean trenches, colossal fractures where tectonic plates meet and one is forced beneath another. Here, the ocean is no longer a plain. It becomes a deep wound carved into Earth's crust. The Mariana Trench is the most famous. Its deepest point, Challenger Deep, reaches nearly 11,000 meters. If you placed Mount Everest inside it, there would still be water above the summit. This is no longer deep in any ordinary sense. It is a realm where every familiar human reference point dissolves. This is the Hadal Zone. The name derives from Hades, the underworld in Greek mythology. Not because it is filled with monsters, but because it is almost unreachable. At depths beyond 6,000 meters, pressure exceeds 600 times atmospheric pressure. Near the bottom of the Mariana Trench, it surpasses 1,000 times. Imagine the entire mass of the ocean above you, kilometers of water, pressing down without pause. And within that darkness, life still exists. Not abundant, not loud, but present. Small fish with gelatin-soft bodies, delicate crustaceans, microorganisms living within cold mud. At the trench floor, marine snow does not fall evenly as in the abyssal plains. Geological currents and steep topography create unique ecosystems. Sediment may accumulate thicker here, preserving organic matter like a library of time. Each layer of mud is a page of history. What is remarkable is this: these deep regions are not geographically rare. There are more than 30 ocean trenches worldwide, primarily concentrated along the Pacific Ring of Fire, yet relative to the planet's surface. They are narrow scars, deep wounds in the body of the ocean, and we have visited them only a handful of times. The first crude descent to Challenger Deep occurred in 1960. Then, decades of silence followed before technology allowed the journey to be repeated. Each descent is an engineering extreme. The vessel's hull must withstand crushing pressure. Equipment must function in total darkness. And each time we look down, we discover that the place once thought impossible is not empty. The abyssal zone may be an endless plain. The Hadal zone may be a deep fracture, yet both belong to the same planet, the same world beneath the sun. It is simply that the sun has never touched them. At those depths, pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than at the surface. If you could take your unprotected body there, every cell would be crushed almost instantly. Air in your lungs would compress. Hollow spaces in your bones would collapse. And yet, life persists. That is what makes the deep ocean both terrifying and astonishing. We once believed that sunlight was a prerequisite for complex life. But at the ocean floor, life does not depend on the sun. It depends on something else. Near hydrothermal vents, superheated water rich in minerals erupts from Earth's crust. There, bacteria do not photosynthesize. They rely on chemical energy, chemosynthesis, to derive energy from compounds such as hydrogen sulfide. In other words, life there is sustained by the planet's own internal forces. Pause for a moment and let that settle. Most life at the surface depends on the sun, a star 150 million kilometers away, but at the bottom of the sea. Life depends on chemical reactions born from Earth's molten core. Two different energy sources, two different worlds, and they coexist on the same planet. When you think of darkness at the ocean floor, you might imagine emptiness, a void without existence. But that darkness is not empty. It is dense. It has weight. It presses against every surface, slips into every crevice, wraps around every small organism like a cloak that is never removed. There is no sound there in the way we understand sound, no wind, no echo in open air. Sound travels differently in water, faster, farther, yet distorted, low, difficult to locate. A small movement can carry for kilometers, and yet everything feels profoundly silent, because no human ear truly belongs there. And light, if it appears, does not come from above. It comes from living bodies. Flashes of green, faint blue glows, biological signals born from chemical reactions within cells. Bioluminescence, at those depths. Light is not sunlight. It is language. It is lure. It is warning. It is the only way to exist in a world without dawn. But what makes that darkness truly extraordinary is the fact that we have not yet fully understood it. Most of the ocean floor remains unmapped in detail. Expeditions illuminate only brief moments, small patches, like shining a flashlight in a vast room we have never fully entered. There are deep regions no camera has ever recorded, trenches no device has touched. Entire ecosystems may exist in silence, never named. We often assume this planet has been nearly fully explored. The truth is quieter. The deep ocean remains Earth's final frontier, not because it seeks to hide, but because we have only just begun to learn how to look downward. No wind, no rustling leaves, no insects, only pressure and slow movement. There is a certain stillness there, not the stillness of an empty room, but the stillness of a world that does not require light to exist. For centuries, humans could only speculate about what lay beneath the deep waters. Tales of sea monsters filled sailors' lore. Kraken, enormous serpents, vast shadows beneath ships. Today, we know reality is far more intricate than mythology. We have submersibles, ROVs pressure sensors, reinforced cameras. Yet even modern technology can remain below only for limited periods. Each expedition costs millions of dollars. Every hour is precious. And even when the camera's beam cuts through the darkness, it illuminates only a small circle within an endless sea. Imagine standing in a forest the size of a continent, holding a small flashlight. You can see what is directly ahead, but you cannot know what moves beyond the beam. That is our situation at the ocean floor. We know the layers of water exist. We know the pressure, the temperature, the salinity. We know life is there, but we do not know the entire story. There are regions of the seafloor no device has ever touched, trenches no human has ever visited, creatures that may have existed for millions of years without ever being named. And remarkably, the deep ocean is not chaos. It has its own rhythm. Deep currents move slowly over centuries. Temperatures remain nearly constant. There are no storms, no spring or winter. The environment is stable in ways the surface can never be. And it is precisely this stability that has allowed the creatures we will encounter in the chapters ahead to persist almost unchanged for tens of millions of years. But tonight, we do not descend that far. Tonight, we pause at the threshold between light and darkness, between where the sun still reaches and where it vanishes forever. Hold that image in your mind. The surface above, the light fading, blue turning to black, pressure rising, temperature falling, and somewhere below, a world operating by different rules. If you listen closely, you might sense it. Not with your ears, but with your imagination. The world beneath the sun is not emptiness. It is the remainder of our planet that we have only just begun to understand. And as you gently drift towards sleep tonight, remember that beneath those calm waves, a deep ocean still exists. Cold, pressurized, dark, and alive. Imagine you are standing in a paleontology museum. Around you rise the immense skeletons of dinosaurs, fossils bearing the imprint of ancient leaves, creatures that vanished tens of millions of years ago. The air is still. Time seems to have paused inside layers of stone. Now try to think of something else. What if that museum were not on land, but on the deep sea floor? What if the beings that seem to exist only as fossils were still swimming? The ocean floor is not merely a place of darkness. It is also a place where time moves so slowly it nearly stops. Unstable. Cold environments with little fluctuation over millions of years. Evolution does not need to hurry. There are no sudden seasonal shifts, no wildfires, no ice ages sweeping directly across the water's surface, no light to be lost. That stability has created living fossils, creatures whose forms have remained almost unchanged since long before humans ever appeared. Goblin shark, the face of the Cretaceous. Imagine, in the deepest darkness, a long, narrow shape drifting silently through cold water. The goblin shark, Mitsukurina austoni. It resembles nothing like the sharks you have seen on screen. There is no powerful curve of a great white, no cold steel gray sheen. instead. The goblin shark carries a strange pale pink color, almost like raw flesh, because its skin is so thin that the blood vessels beneath are visible under the artificial light of a submersible. It appears semi-transparent, as if it has stepped out of a world that has never known the sun. Its snout extends forward, sharp and flattened, like a soft blade or a strip of metal stretched inside the water. Its head is not balanced by the standards of familiar beauty. It is long, tapered, and somehow ancient, like a design that was never updated with time. And then there is its jaw. When the goblin shark hunts, its entire jaw can shoot forward in an instant, not merely opening wider, but truly sliding out of its normal position, like a spring-loaded mechanism being triggered. Elastic ligaments and specialized muscles work together to thrust both the upper and lower jaws outward, then retract them immediately afterward. In the deep darkness, where prey may appear only briefly as a faint vibration in the water. That reaction is survival itself. There are not many second chances at that depth. Each strike must be precise. Picture it in the black water, a creature drifting slowly, almost lazily, no hurried motion, no urgency, and then, suddenly, a short forward snap, so fast the human eye can barely follow. The prey vanishes. Darkness returns to stillness, as if nothing happened. What is even more remarkable is their history. Relatives of the goblin shark appeared around 125 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period, when gigantic dinosaurs still ruled the continents, when the first flowers began to bloom on Earth. Over that vast span, through meteor impacts, mass extinctions, the rise of mammals, and finally humankind, the basic form of this lineage has changed very little. Not because they stopped evolving, evolution never stops, but because their environment did not demand dramatic change. The deep sea floor is one of the most stable environments on the planet. There are no seasonal temperature swings, no sunlight reshaping daily cycles, no storms, no droughts. Pressure remains high. Temperature remains cold. Darkness remains absolute. In an environment that stays nearly constant over millions of years, effective biological structures tend to persist. There is no selective pressure strong enough to rebuild the entire body. And so, in the goblin shark, we witness an ancient design, gently refined over time, yet never replaced. When researchers first recorded this species in 1898 off the coast of Japan, the first feeling was not mythical fear. It was astonishment. In the industrial era, when humans believed they had classified almost everything in the natural world. A creature with a face seemingly lifted from prehistory suddenly appeared in fishing nets. It did not roar. It did not attack. It was not a symbol of a monster. It simply existed, like a quiet reminder that beneath the deep, dark water, time does not move at our pace, and that parts of Earth's ancient history never truly disappeared. They are still swimming, slowly. In darkness, we rarely look down into, how can such an ancient form still exist? The answer may lie in the darkness itself. Frilled shark, the serpent shadow of the past. If the goblin shark looks like a living fossil, then the frilled shark, Chlamydosalacus anguineus, resembles a creature stepped out of an ancient legend. Its body is long and slender, not thick or powerful like the sharks we usually imagine. It undulates like a dark ribbon drifting through water when seen through a submersible camera. It does not cut through the sea with forceful motions. It slithers, slowly, softly, almost like an ancient sea serpent gliding through darkness. Its 6 gill slits flare along the sides of its neck, edged in deep red, layered like the folds of a medieval collar. That is why it is called frilled under the cold, artificial beam of an ROV. Those gill folds appear nearly translucent, delicate edges trembling lightly in the current. They do not pulse violently. Everything here is restrained. Breath is slow. Motion is slow. And then there is its mouth. When it opens, it reveals not just teeth, but a labyrinth of teeth, more than 300 small, hook-curved teeth arranged in multiple rows receding deep into the jaw. Each tooth is thin yet sharp, designed more to hold than to slice. If prey slips inside, escape is almost impossible. The frilled shark's mouth does not spread wide horizontally like many modern sharks. It opens in depth, creating the impression of a vertical crack on the creature's head. When it closes, that crack disappears, returning the face to a calmness that is almost unbelievable. It does not swim like modern sharks with strong, decisive tail beats. Its movement is soft and continuous, like a wave traveling along the body. The torso bends gently from front to back, producing a silent, crawling glide. No haste, no display, as if the water is not its environment, but an extension of its own body. Scientists believe this species has existed for at least 80 million years. When dinosaurs still walked the land and continents were still shifting, the frilled shark was already here. And across that long span, its basic form has barely changed. Pause and hold that thought. While the world above underwent constant upheaval, meteor strikes, climate shifts, extinctions clearing the way for new forms beneath the deep water, a slender body continued drifting, nearly unchanged. What makes it even more striking is that we rarely see it in its natural habitat. Frilled sharks live at depths of several hundred to more than 1,000 meters. Much of what we know comes from individuals accidentally caught in deep fishing nets, or from rare instances when they rise near the surface, usually weakened, injured, or ill. The scarce footage from submersibles suggests it is not a predator that charges at prey with high speed. It seems to wait, to hide within the dark. There is a hypothesis that its flexible body allows it to bend suddenly, almost folding itself to deliver a swift bite in the narrow spaces of the deep sea floor. Imagine standing in a dark, narrow corridor where you can see only a few meters ahead. In that darkness, a long shape lies still, no light reflecting from skin, no obvious motion, and then just a slight bend, a soft curve in the water, and the prey is gone. No sound, no bubbles, no trace. The frilled shark is not a monster of legend. It is not gigantic. It is not loud. Yet there is something profound in its presence, as if you are watching a fragment of Earth's memory still moving. A creature that does not need to change in order to endure. An ancient serpent shadow, still silently sliding through darkness where sunlight has never touched. Imagine, at a depth of several hundred meters, water dark, still, and within that space, A long, ancient form passes by. No sound, no light. That is not mythology. That is biological truth. Giant squid, the kraken of modern science. For centuries, sailors spoke of the kraken, a colossal creature that dragged ships to the seafloor. Many believed it was only imagination, until giant squid bodies washed ashore. Architeuthis dux, the giant squid, it can reach more than 10 meters in length when researchers stretch the tentacles of an individual stranded on shore. That length forces you to step back just to see it whole. Its mantle is long and muscular, soft but powerful. Two main tentacles extend farther than the rest of the body, ending in circular suction cups that glint like small buttons. And then there are the eyes. Each eye can reach a diameter of about 27 centimeters, nearly the size of a dinner plate, in the animal kingdom. It is among the largest visual structures ever recorded. Not to see bright colors, not to observe fine detail, but to detect the faintest change in darkness. Below several hundred meters, sunlight is almost gone. What remains is only a weak bluish haze. In that world, enormous eyes allow the giant squid to notice subtle movements, perhaps the bioluminescent shimmer of other organisms, or more importantly, the shadow of a larger predator approaching. Scientists suggest one reason its eyes evolved to such size is to detect sperm whales, its main predator, in deep, dark water. Before a massive body strikes, there is a small change in light, a dim shadow, a distortion in vision, and those eyes must be sensitive enough to catch it. Try to picture it. Hundreds of meters down, water cold and black as ink. A long, soft body hangs suspended. Two tentacles extend slowly outward, and in that silent space, a larger shadow begins to form. No sound like on land, only a slight shift in pressure, a biological premonition. That is the world of the giant squid. What is astonishing is that for centuries, humans knew it only from stranded carcasses or scars on sperm whales. Kraken stories may have been born from rare encounters between people and giant squid. Yet until 2012, we had never captured footage of a living giant squid in its natural habitat. It took decades of technological development, deep-diving submersibles built for crushing pressure, ultra-sensitive cameras, and a patience that bordered on inexhaustible. When the first footage was released, it was not a violent battle, not a monster lunging forward. It was simply a colossal creature, moving slowly through darkness. The moment was not loud, it was quiet, almost serene. Stop and consider this. A creature as long as a small bus, living on the same planet as us. And only in the 21st century did we finally see it alive in its own world. What does that tell us? We still do not fully understand its reproductive cycle. We do not know its exact average lifespan. We do not know whether it lives solitary its entire life or meets others only in rare moments of mating within the dark. We do not know where the young grow. We do not know how long it takes to reach adult size. We do not fully know how it hunts in the wild, beyond analyzing stomach contents of dead specimens. It exists alongside us, but in a separate world. While humans build cities, invent technology, and travel into space, down in that cold realm, a giant creature continues to swim in darkness, moving to a rhythm independent of the sun, independent of the noise of civilization. There is something humbling in that truth. We often believe we have discovered the world. Yet there are creatures so large they cannot be ignored, and we have still only just begun to understand them. The giant squid does not hide because it wants to be mysterious. It simply lives where we rarely go. And in that deep darkness, its enormous eyes remain open, seeing movements we have never been able to sense. When we look at these three creatures, goblin shark, frilled shark, giant squid, we begin to see a shared pattern. They are not new creatures. They did not appear recently, and they are not the product of a sudden evolutionary explosion in the last few million years. They are ancient branches of the evolutionary tree, long silent lines stretching back to an era when the surface of the planet looked completely different. Try to imagine Earth tens of millions of years ago. The continents were not in their current positions. Massive land masses were still drifting slowly over the hot mantle beneath. Dinosaurs walked through humid forests. There were no humans, no cities, no language. And beneath the deep water, in that cold darkness, the ancestors of goblin sharks, frilled sharks, and giant squid already existed. When the asteroid struck near the Yucatan Peninsula around 66 million years ago, altering global climate and pushing dinosaurs toward extinction, the deep sea floor did not tremble in the same way the land did. Sunlight was blocked, surface temperatures fell sharply, terrestrial ecosystems collapsed. But thousands of meters down, where light had never existed, the change did not arrive with the same violence. When ice ages came and went, when kilometers-thick ice sheets covered continents and then melted, when sea levels rose and fell, the deep ocean floor retained an astonishing stability. Temperature nearly constant, pressure constant, darkness constant. While land was a realm of upheaval, of rupture, of rapid and sometimes brutal evolution, the deep sea floor was like a sealed room where time moved by a far slower rhythm. That does not mean evolution did not occur there. Evolution still continued. Mutation still appeared. Natural selection still acted. But the rhythm was different. Slower, less explosive. Not biological revolutions that rebuilt entire bodies, but subtle refinements almost invisible to the human eye, a slight change in protein structure to withstand pressure more effectively, a minor adjustment in sensing vibrations through water, a delicate improvement in the nervous system to react a fraction of a second faster. This is the evolution of endurance. If land is a place of constant biological experiments, then the deep sea floor is a place of preservation, like a vast biological archive, but not a museum of the dead, a museum of what is still alive. Think about that for a moment. In museums on land, we see fossils, bones turned to stone, impressions preserved in sediment. They are evidence of a past that no longer moves. But beneath the deep ocean, the past is still swimming, still opening its eyes, still hunting, still reproducing and continuing its lineage. Perhaps what makes us feel these creatures are terrifying is not their strange appearance, not their sharp teeth or enormous eyes, but because when we look at them, we are looking at a version of Earth that no longer exists on the surface. They are living memory. They remind us that the ancient world never truly disappeared. It was not entirely erased by extinctions. It was not completely replaced by modern life. A part of it still remains, hidden beneath deep water, where sunlight never reaches, where the noise of civilization never echoes. There is something both humbling and unsettling in that truth, because it shows that what we call the present is only a thin layer on the surface of a planet with a far deeper history. When we watch a frilled shark undulating through darkness, or a goblin shark launching its jaw in an instant, we are not merely seeing a fish. We are seeing time, not time measured by human calendars, but geological time, and that time is still moving, silently, beneath us, only in a place we rarely look toward, and perhaps that very distance is what makes it feel both mysterious and worthy of awe. As you drift deeper into relaxation, imagine the ocean as a curtain of time. Above, the world changes quickly, cities rise, technology advances, generations pass. Below, in cold darkness, creatures from the Cretaceous still swim. No hurry, no noise. They know nothing of human history, nothing of civilizations rising and falling. They simply continue to exist, as they have for tens of millions of years. And perhaps that is what makes the deep ocean feel both humbling and mystical. Because when we look down to the seafloor, we are not only looking into darkness, we are looking into the past, still alive. If in the previous chapter we met creatures like living fossils, ancient outlines that have barely changed with time, then in this chapter, we step into something else. Not the past, but a departure from the familiar rules of biology. Imagine you have grown used to how bodies work on land. Eyes need light, muscles need oxygen. The immune system must distinguish self from not self. The skull must protect the brain with hard bone. Life needs the rhythm of day and night. And then you look down into the deep sea. Down there, those rules no longer hold their shape. Barrelay fish, the fish with a transparent head. In 1939, scientists first described a small fish in the family Opisthoproctidae. But it was not until 2004 to 2009 when the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, MBRI, captured clear footage with ROV submersibles that we truly understood what we were looking at. Its name is Macropinna microstoma, the barreleye fish. Imagine a small body, about 15 centimeters long, suspended at a depth of several hundred meters in the twilight zone, where light is only a faint blue veil overhead. Its body is not especially striking, but its head is like a glass dome. The front of its head is transparent, filled with a gel-like fluid. You can see straight through it, inside. Two bright green structures stand out like two floating gems. Those are its eyes, but not in the way you think. At first, scientists believed those two green spots were fixed eyes pointing upward. That made sense, because the barreleye fish often hangs vertically in the water, aiming its gaze upward to detect the silhouettes of creatures swimming above. But footage in 2009 revealed something startling. Those eyes can rotate forward. They are not fixed binoculars. They are flexible, tube-shaped structures, mounted within a transparent gel-filled chamber, allowing them to change direction without turning the entire head. Pause for a moment and imagine it. A creature whose skull is almost transparent in front, as if bone has been replaced by a soft glass dome. Inside that dome, the brain and two green tubular structures are visible, quietly turning within the gel. There is no thick layer of bone shielding them the way we are used to when we think of head and eyes. No dark eye sockets. Instead, there is a clear, fluid-filled chamber where the visual organs can move freely. Why would such a fragile design exist? Because at several hundred meters deep, water is no longer merely an environment. It is structural support. External pressure balances internal pressure, reducing the need for a rigid bony frame to resist impact. And in a world where light is only weak traces drifting down from above, vision must be optimized differently. Tube-shaped eyes pointing upward to collect the faint silhouettes of prey, then rotating forward when focus is needed. The barrel-eye fish does not hunt with speed or force. It hangs silently in the water column, watching bioluminescent creatures or the translucent umbrellas of jellyfish drifting overhead. When the moment comes, it needs only the smallest adjustment. Rotate the eyes, tilt the body, move forward slowly. There is no dramatic chase, no explosive burst of movement. Only a patience that feels almost meditative in the dark. What truly astonished researchers was not its modest size, but how it completely restructures the concept of head and eyes. Here, anatomy does not obey our expectations. It reflects pressure, light, and the pace of life itself. As if the body were whispering, when the world changes deeply enough, the very definition of form must change with it. Vampire squid, a creature that fits no template. Its scientific name is Vampiroteuthis infernalis, the vampire squid from hell. The name sounds like it came out of a Gothic novel, but its biological reality is even stranger. The vampire squid is not truly a squid in the usual sense, and it is not entirely an octopus either, taxonomically. It belongs to its own distinct lineage of cephalopod mollusks, an evolutionary branch that split very early, almost standing between two worlds. When you look at it, you may recognize certain familiar traits of squid: an elongated body, arms spreading around the mouth. But then you also see clear differences. No two exceptionally long tentacles like typical squid. No heavily muscled body built for sprinting like many octopuses. It feels like an evolutionary line that turned onto its own path and stayed there. Imagine a body of deep red, sometimes nearly pitch black in dim light, about 30 centimeters long, nothing enormous, nothing monstrous in size. Yet that color, dark red, at several hundred meters deep nearly disappears entirely, because red light cannot penetrate that far into the water. To other creatures, it may appear as nothing more than a shadow. Between its arms is a thin membrane of skin connecting them. When spread, that membrane forms a shape like a wide cloak. This is where the vampire name comes from. But instead of flying through air, it drifts in cold water, where the temperature is only a few degrees Celsius and sunlight has vanished. Its habitat, around 600 to 900 meters deep, is called the oxygen minimum zone. This is a layer where dissolved oxygen levels are extremely low. Most marine animals cannot function for long in such conditions. Muscles starve for oxygen. The nervous system weakens. Metabolism becomes difficult. But the vampire squid can survive, and not just briefly. Its metabolism is extraordinarily slow. Its entire way of living is optimized for conserving energy to the absolute maximum. Its circulatory system uses hemocyanin, a copper-containing protein rather than iron-based hemoglobin like humans. Hemocyanin can bind and transport oxygen more efficiently in cold, low-oxygen environments. Its heart beats slowly. Its muscles do not need constant contraction. It does not waste energy in pointless chases. And it is not a fierce predator. Despite what the name suggests, rather than hunting large prey, the vampire squid mainly collects marine snow, organic debris, the remains of microorganisms, fragments of biological matter falling from the layers above. It uses long, thread-like filaments that can extend like fine strings to gather tiny particles toward its mouth. In a world where food is scarce, the optimal strategy is not speed, but patience and economy. But when threatened, it has a defense unlike anything else. It does not eject black ink like typical squid. Instead, it releases a cloud of bioluminescent particles, tiny points of light glittering in the dark water like stardust dissolving into the sea. Those lights do not last long, but they are enough to disorient a predator in the decisive moment. And in that same moment, the vampire squid performs a strange movement. It flips its cloak-like membrane inward, draws its arms back, and reveals small spines on the inside. The entire body becomes a dark, spiky sphere, a defensive posture scientists call the pineapple posture because it resembles a pineapple. Imagine that scene in the deep darkness. A deep red body drifting, suddenly spreading like a cloak, then turning itself inside out, becoming a spined mass shimmering in black water. Tiny lights drift around it, fading, then disappearing. And then everything returns to silence. No roar, no violent charge, no direct confrontation. Just a different strategy. Not attack, not escape by speed, but survival through consuming as little energy as possible, minimizing risk, living slower than the world around it. Scientists once assumed that a relatively large creature like this could not sustain life for long in such severely low oxygen waters. But the vampire squid shattered that assumption. It shows that a body does not need to be powerful by familiar standards in order to persist. It only needs to fit its context. And perhaps that is what makes it truly remarkable. Not because it resembles a vampire, but because it is living proof that life adapts not only through strength, but through restraint, through slow rhythm, through the ability to survive where most other organisms cannot. In that oxygen-poor darkness, the vampire squid does not try to conquer its environment. It merges with it and continues. Its anatomy, from its circulatory system, to muscles that are weak yet efficient, to energy-saving behavior, is evidence that biology has no single fixed blueprint. It adapts to the environment, and when the environment is different enough, the body can look as if it came from another planet. We grow up with an unspoken set of rules about life. Eyes must be protected by bone. Bodies need abundant oxygen to function. The head must be a solid structure. The immune system must clearly distinguish between ours and theirs. But in the next chapter, we will see those rules challenged even more. Right here, with the barrel-eye fish and the vampire squid. We begin to recognize something very clearly. Biology is not a rigid rule book applied everywhere. What we call normal is simply the result of the environment we live in. On land, the head is usually protected by a thick skull. Eyes sit in strong bony sockets, and the body needs plenty of oxygen to maintain constant activity. We are used to thinking that is how life must operate, but when we descend into the deep sea, those assumptions lose their foundation. The barrel-eye fish does not have a solid head the way we imagine. The front of its skull is almost transparent, filled with gel, allowing its tube-shaped eyes to rotate freely inside. This is not a design flaw, at depths where water pressure surrounds and supports the body. A thick, rigid structure is not as necessary as it is on land. More importantly, in a world of extremely weak light. Optimizing the capture of faint light from above becomes the highest priority. So instead of forward-facing eyes like ours, it evolved a specialized visual system to watch for dim silhouettes overhead. Its body does not obey our mental picture of a fish head. It is shaped by darkness and pressure. The vampire squid is the same. In waters of severe oxygen scarcity, most organisms cannot sustain powerful activity. If we placed our own bodies there, we would weaken quickly. But the vampire squid does not try to defeat the environment with speed or strength. It slows its metabolism to an extreme, uses hemocyanin to transport oxygen more efficiently in cold, oxygen-poor conditions, and chooses to collect organic debris rather than chase large prey. Its slowness is not weakness. It is energy optimization in a scarce ecosystem. When you think of life, you may imagine variation within familiar limits. Fish must have solid heads. Animals must breathe actively. Predators must be fast and strong. But the deep sea expands those limits. It shows that what we consider standard is simply what fits the sunlit, oxygen-rich surface. At those depths, where sunlight never reaches, a body does not need to resemble us or anything we are used to seeing. It only needs to fit the conditions around it: pressure, darkness, and energy scarcity. So when we say the anatomy of these creatures breaks every rule, we do not mean they are abnormal or flawed. In truth, they are perfectly logical, just logical within a different context. The rules do not disappear. They change with the environment. Change the context from a sunlit, oxygen-rich surface to deep water with low oxygen, and the entire definition of normal changes with it. In that deep darkness, life does not obey human expectations. It does not care about the standards we formed from land-based experience. Instead, it quietly rewrites biological principles according to the reality of its environment. And that is exactly what makes the deep sea the most powerful challenge to our understanding of bodies and life. Imagine you are drifting through a body of water so black it feels solid. No moon, no stars, no sunlight slipping down from above. Only darkness, so dense you can no longer tell what is in front of you and what is behind. And then a single small point of light appears, not from the sky, not from the ground, but from a moving body itself. In the deep sea, light is not something that comes from outside. It is made from within. And in that world, light is not simply for seeing. It is language. It is a weapon. It is a trap. In this chapter, we enter one of nature's most intricate hunting strategies: bioluminescence. About 90% of organisms living in the midwater, deep and below, possess bioluminescence in some form. That means most life down there knows how to make its own light. The chemical reaction often involves luciferin and luciferase, two compounds that, when interacting with oxygen, produce a cold light that generates almost no heat. That light is usually blue or green, wavelengths that travel farthest through seawater. But why glow in a place where there is no light to begin with? Because in absolute darkness, any beam of light becomes a powerful signal. And for a predator, that signal can become an advantage. Anglerfish, the lantern of the abyss. If you have ever seen an image of a small creature with a large head, a mouth full of sharp teeth, and a little lamp hovering in front of its forehead, that is an anglerfish. Have you seen or heard of this creature before? What did it feel like when you did? But those images are often exaggerated. In reality, most deep-sea anglerfish are only a few dozen centimeters long. What makes them unforgettable is not their size. It is their strategy. On the female's head is a structure called the elysium, a modified spine extending forward, ending in a small sac called the esca. Inside that sac are symbiotic bioluminescent bacteria. It is those bacteria that produce the light. Picture it in the deepest darkness. A body almost motionless, drifting or pressed close to the seafloor. A wide mouth, long teeth curved inward like fish hooks, and in front of the forehead, a small point of light swaying slowly. To a smaller creature, that light does not suggest danger. In a darkness so thick that everything is invisible, a tiny glowing dot trembling ahead feels like an invitation. Perhaps it is a bioluminescent plankton. Perhaps a shimmering piece of marine snow. Perhaps food. In the deep sea, opportunity is so rare that instinct is forced to respond. It draws closer. Slowly, cautiously. The light ahead does not hurry. It only drifts and wavers, like a weak little organism carried by the current. The anglerfish's slender elysium can bend with remarkable flexibility, making that lantern tremble with an almost natural rhythm. Behind that small light is a body that is nearly invisible. The anglerfish is not a graceful swimmer. Its body is round, its skin wrinkled, its color so dark it absorbs almost every remaining trace of light. Its head makes up most of its form. Its mouth is so wide it looks like a great crack split across its face. Its teeth are not small. They are long, sharp, curved inward like hooks made of glass. Not meant to tear apart, but to hold when the mouth closes. Those hooked teeth interlock like a cage. The prey does not see that. It only sees the light. The distance narrows, and then, in a fraction of a second, the mouth opens. Not opens normally. It erupts. The lower jaw drops wide. A flexible skull allows the mouth to expand far beyond what the body's proportions should permit. Water surges inward, dragging the prey with it in a powerful suction. No sound, no cry, only disappearance. The anglerfish's stomach can expand astonishingly. There are recorded cases of prey nearly as long as the predator itself. In an environment where food is scarce, every chance must be exploited. If today brings a large meal, it must sustain the body for many days, perhaps many weeks. After the swallow, the enormous mouth closes, hooked teeth hold fast. The light in front still hovers, still trembling as if nothing happened. No dramatic chase, no violent pursuit. Only a body, almost motionless in the darkness, with a small lantern like a false promise. What makes the anglerfish unsettling is not only its teeth or its glowing lure, it is its silence. It does not need to be stronger than everything else. It only needs to be more patient. In that deep darkness, where light is rare and precious, the anglerfish turns light into a snare. And perhaps that is the most frightening thing. Not speed, not size, but a small point of light in a place where you once believed light meant safety. Even more extraordinary is their reproductive strategy. In many deep-sea anglerfish species, the male is far smaller than the female, sometimes only 1/10 her size. When the male finds a female, he bites into her body and gradually fuses with her. Their circulatory systems merge. The male slowly loses his separate organs until only the testes remain, becoming a permanent reproductive appendage. In an immense pitch-black environment where encountering a mate is extremely rare, this strategy ensures that when the opportunity appears, it is never wasted. Here, light is not only a hunting tool, it is a key to survival. Black dragonfish, red light in a blue darkness. If the anglerfish uses blue light, the most common color in the deep sea, then the black dragonfish does something almost no other creature can do. It produces red light. In seawater, red light is absorbed very quickly, at great depth. There is almost no natural red light left. That means most deep-sea organisms cannot see red. But the black dragonfish can. It possesses a specialized visual system capable of detecting red wavelengths, something nearly meaningless to most other deep-sea animals. At the same time, it has bioluminescent organs that emit a faint red glow, produced by small structures along the body or near the mouth. Imagine that advantage more clearly. In a world where blue light is the standard, because it is the only wavelength that travels far through deep water, most organisms see in the same way. They evolve to recognize blue flashes, to detect blue glows, to respond to blue signals. But the black dragonfish is different. It is like a creature walking into a dark room where everyone relies on the same kind of night vision, while it carries an entirely different technology. Red light at that depth is almost invisible to most organisms. They have no receptors sensitive to such long wavelengths. For them, red light essentially does not exist. But the black dragonfish can see it, and it can create it. Imagine you are a small creature suspended in dark water. You believe you are safe because no blue light is shining on you. You detect no blue flashes. You sense no danger. Yet far away, a faint red beam is sweeping over your body like an invisible flashlight. You do not know you have been seen. The black dragonfish has a long, slender body, almost entirely black. Its skin absorbs light so efficiently that it reflects almost nothing back. In a world already dark, it becomes darker still. Its head is relatively small compared to its length, but its mouth is not. The jaws extend forward. The teeth are long, thin, slightly curved, and nearly transparent. Not bright white like the teeth of many fish, but dim, glass-like. That means when it opens its mouth in darkness, you may not see teeth catching the light. You see only emptiness, and then it is too late. Its body can reach about 40 centimeters in length, but because it is so thin and so dark, it appears like a strip of shadow sliding through the water. In some dragonfish species, females are much larger than males. Males can be so small that their digestive systems are reduced. living only briefly for the single purpose of finding a mate, another reminder that in the deep sea, survival strategies can take paths unlike anything we expect. The black dragonfish's light organs often sit near the eyes and along the body. Some studies suggest it can adjust the intensity of its red glow, enough to illuminate prey at close range, but not strong enough to spread far. Picture it, a water column black and still, a body thin as thread drifting past. From near its mouth, a faint red beam sweeps gently across the space ahead. No one else can see that beam, and within that red light, small details are revealed. The scales of a tiny fish, the delicate tentacles of drifting plankton, an accidental movement. The black dragonfish does not need to rush forward at terrifying speed. It only needs to come close enough for the mouth to open. Transparent teeth close like an invisible trap. Its strategy does not rely on overpowering strength, not on a long pursuit, but on near total invisibility and the ability to see what no one else can see. In the deep sea, where scarce light is a warning signal, the black dragonfish has created its own light, its own private language within the darkness. And in that language, it is the only one who truly understands the full meaning. Bioluminescence is not only for hunting, it is also language. Some species use light to attract mates. Some use it to confuse predators. Some use it for counter-illumination, producing light on the underside of the body to blend with the faint glow from above, making them nearly vanish when seen from below. In deep darkness, light becomes information. And the best predator is the one who knows how to manipulate that information. The anglerfish uses light to deceive. The black dragonfish uses light to see without being seen. Other species may flash in specific rhythms, like coded signals, to recognize their own kind. Try to imagine the deep ocean not as absolute blackness, but as an inverted night sky where points of light appear and vanish, blinking in patterns we cannot yet fully decipher. Not stars, but life. And what is striking is that most bioluminescent predators do not hunt through long chases. At those depths, energy is scarce. Food is not abundant. Every powerful movement costs precious energy. So the common strategy is to wait, to drift, to hide, and to use light as a trap. Instead of chasing prey, they make prey come to them. It is a fascinating reversal of what we think hunting is. Here, patience is stronger than speed. Concealment is stronger than pursuit. And light, the thing that on land symbolizes safety and visibility, becomes a sign of danger. At the surface, light helps us see threats. It helps us detect predators. But in the deep sea, light can be what leads you to death. A small flash in darkness can be a promise of food, or it can be the lantern of an anglerfish waiting. This reversal changes the way we understand light. It is no longer a simple symbol of life and safety. It becomes a neutral tool, depending on who is using it. In the hands of a predator, light becomes strategy. And perhaps what draws us to bioluminescent creatures is not that they are terrifying, but that they reveal a use of light that we are not used to. Light is not only to illuminate, it can conceal, it can deceive, it can make darkness feel deeper. As you close your eyes and imagine that thick black water, picture small points of light appearing and fading in silence. No noise, no violence in the way we usually think. Only intricate strategies unfolding slowly in cold darkness. Down there, light does not drive the night away. It belongs to the night, and bioluminescent predators are masters of that light. Imagine the entire ocean pressing down on you. Not waves, not storms, but the silent weight of kilometers of water. Cold, dense, relentlessly forcing itself onto every surface below. At a depth of 1,000 meters, pressure is already about 100 times greater than at sea level. At 4,000 meters, it rises to 400 times. And at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters, pressure exceeds 1,000 times atmospheric pressure. That is a weight capable of crushing steel if the structure is not strong enough. And yet, life still exists there. Not life that looks like anything we are used to, but forms that are soft, warped, almost as if they do not belong to any world sunlight has ever touched. Mariana snailfish, a creature of the abyss. In 2014, and then again during expeditions in 2017, scientists recorded footage of a fish living deeper than 8,000 meters in the Mariana Trench. That species was later named Pseudoliparis swirri, commonly called the Mariana snailfish. If you expect a monster with enormous fangs, you will be surprised. It has no hard scales, no overlapping armor plates like shallow water fish, no thick muscles coiled beneath the skin to create a powerful silhouette. If you saw it without knowing where it lives, you might think it is fragile, easily damaged, perhaps incapable of surviving anything harsh at all. The Mariana snailfish's body is almost translucent. When the submersible's lights strike it, faint outlines inside become visible, as though you are looking through soft jelly. Its body is about 20 to 30 centimeters long, tapering gently toward the tail. Its head is small, not raised, not imposing, with no robust structure that demands attention. Its eyes are minimal, neither large nor bright, because at depths beyond 8,000 meters, sunlight has vanished completely. Vision is no longer the most important sense. Its skin is thin and pale, almost without pigment, as it drifts across the cold mud of the Mariana Trench floor. It resembles a dim, gelatinous mass gliding through a world without light. No sound, no decisive movements, only a soft shape moving silently through an environment humans can reach only for a few rare hours. But do not let that delicate appearance fool you. That very softness is the key. At pressures above 800 atmospheres, hundreds of times what we feel at the surface, any gas-filled cavity in a body would be crushed. Lungs would collapse. Swim bladders would implode. Hollow spaces in bone could not survive. That is why the Mariana snailfish has no swim bladder like shallow water fish. It does not rely on empty structures to regulate buoyancy. Instead, its body is almost entirely solid, with none of the air-filled spaces that would be vulnerable to compression. At the molecular level, its adaptations are even more refined. Its body contains high concentrations of TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide, a molecule that helps stabilize protein structures under extreme pressure. Pressure can deform enzymes and proteins, making them lose function. But TMAO acts like an anti-distortion agent, preventing those molecular structures from being broken. Imagine every cell in your body being squeezed from every direction, cell membranes compressed, proteins twisted out of shape, chemical reactions disrupted in a human body that would rapidly lead to collapse, but in the Mariana snailfish. Every cell is reinforced from within, not by hardening, not by growing thicker armor, but by adjusting its very chemistry. It does not resist pressure through strength. It merges with pressure by becoming softer. At that depth, soft does not mean weak. Soft means flexible. Soft means there is no clear breaking point to be crushed. A soft body distributes compressive force evenly, rather than concentrating it onto a rigid structure that could crack. And that softness, inside a world that is cold, dark, and heavy, creates an image that is both fragile and haunting. Under the artificial lights of the submersible, it looks like a creature that barely belongs to the solid physical world. A dim fish-shaped shadow sliding across gray mud, where the temperature is around 1 to 2 degrees Celsius and natural light does not exist. There is something unsettling in the thought that life at that depth does not take the powerful form we might imagine, but instead looks soft, almost melted, as if, to survive beneath the ocean's crushing weight, a body must abandon every illusion of hardness, must become so flexible it nearly loses a fixed shape. And in the trench's darkness, the Mariana snailfish continues to drift, uncrushed, unbroken, simply because it fits perfectly into a pressure we will never be able to endure directly. Its softness is not a sign of weakness. It is proof that sometimes, to survive in the harshest environments, the strongest thing is not hardness, but knowing how to yield to the weight around you. In the ROV's light, its body reflects faintly, as if it does not fully belong to solid matter, a blurred shadow moving across gray mud, kilometers beneath the surface. At extreme depth, what we consider reasonable structure no longer applies. Thick bones, powerful muscles, hard scales, traits that help creatures survive on land, can become burdens under crushing pressure. Many Hadal creatures have bodies so soft they seem to lack any clear rigid structure. Some deep-sea crustaceans have long, thin legs like sticks, with eyes reduced or entirely absent. Other organisms have mouths that open unnaturally wide compared to the size of the head, because where food is rare, any opportunity must be used. That distortion is not an error. It is a direct response to physics. On the trench floor, where pressure can exceed 1,000 atmospheres, every pocket of gas is a danger. A body must be dense without emptiness. Every structure must endure constant compression. Imagine a world with no relief, no loosening of pressure, no moment when a body is unloaded. Every second is a state of being pressed. And within that state, life still breathes, slowly, very slowly. Dumbo octopus, a gentle appearance in a frozen hell. At depths beyond 4,000 meters, and sometimes deeper, another creature appears. The Dumbo octopus, of the genus Grimpoteuthis. The name Dumbo comes from 2 rounded fins protruding on either side of its head, resembling small ears. The first time people see its image on a submersible screen, some even smile, because in the deep sea's darkness, the appearance of a creature with ears feels strangely familiar. But if you look longer, more carefully, that feeling begins to change. At more than 4,000 meters deep, where sunlight has never reached, there is no concept of cute. There is only adaptation and survival. The Dumbo octopus's body is soft and almost without any clearly rigid structure. No protective shell, no ink sac like shallow water octopuses, because here, ink offers no advantage. There is no light to obscure, no predators seeing with ordinary vision in the way we understand. Instead of ejecting ink and jetting away like shallow water octopuses, the Dumbo octopus moves by gently flapping those two rounded fins. Its motion is slow, steady, almost hypnotic. No sudden jolts, no burst of bubbles. It hovers in the water column like living cloth, rhythmically beating through cold darkness. Its skin is smooth and thin. Color varies by individual and species, sometimes nearly milky white, sometimes pale pink, sometimes a faint purple haze, but under the submersible's artificial light. It often appears like a ghost. Light passes through its thin skin, revealing faint internal structures, then dissolves again into the surrounding black. Its eyes are large relative to its body, but not bright or sharply focused like those of surface-dwelling species. At this depth, vision is no longer the dominant sense. Its small mouth sits beneath the body among the arms. The arms are joined by a thin membrane, forming an umbrella-like shape when spread. Imagine watching through a submersible camera. No sound except equipment. No audible rush of water as a fast fish passes near the surface. Only a soft shape emerging from darkness, flapping slowly, then gliding past the lens. No noise, no urgency, only presence. In water where temperatures sit just a few degrees above freezing, and pressure can crush any structure that is not adapted. The Dumbo octopus does not try to fight the environment. It blends into it. Its soft body does not resist pressure through stiffness. It disperses that pressure through every soft tissue, every fiber of muscle. When it hunts, it does not surge forward in explosive speed. It does not tear prey apart with sharp teeth. Instead, it approaches slowly the small creatures living on or near the seafloor, crustaceans, polychaete worms, small mollusks, when it is close enough. It covers the prey with its arms and swallows it whole. No violent strike, no long pursuit, only a gentle closing movement and disappearance. In that deep darkness, the horror does not lie in roaring or speed. It lies in absolute silence, in the way a creature can drift before your eyes, soft and quiet, in an environment the human body cannot endure for even a few seconds. The Dumbo octopus does not look like a monster, but when you realize it is living where pressure can crush a submersible that is not strong enough, where light does not exist and temperatures hover near freezing, its softness becomes something else. Not cute, but alien. Like a silhouette from a world not meant for us. Quietly flapping its ears and disappearing into darkness we can only witness through thick glass and technology. Scientists have long asked, is there a limit to life under pressure? The Mariana snailfish is currently recorded as one of the deepest living fish ever observed. But beyond depths of roughly 8,000 to 9,000 meters, protein structures and cell membranes begin to struggle. Pressure can become so intense that it distorts molecular structure, which means life in the Hadal zone must be designed at a chemical level to endure. Imagine a creature whose every enzyme has been tuned so it will not be twisted out of function under colossal force. Adaptation is no longer only about outward shape. It happens at the molecular level. And when we look at these soft, nearly boneless creatures, what is truly frightening is not only their appearance, it is the environment that shaped them. A world without light, without warmth, without mercy. There is something chilling in the idea of constant pressure. Not roaring, not blood, but an invisible weight that is always present. In the deep sea, there is no release from pressure, no moment when the body can relax. Every creature down there is proof that life can adapt to conditions we cannot endure for even a few seconds. Imagine standing at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. No light, no sound the way you know it, only darkness and weight. And in that darkness, a body soft as jelly drifts past. An octopus with small ears glides by. A creature with no clear skeleton crawls across cold mud. They do not scream. They do not charge. They do not need to. Simply existing there is already beyond human imagination. While on land, we fear predators with fangs and claws. Down in the deep sea, fear takes another shape. It takes the shape of softness, of gelatin, of forms that seem almost without structure. It is a body compressed by kilometers of water. It is the silence of a world where physics rules absolutely. And as you close your eyes tonight, imagine that weight. Not to be afraid, but to realize that beneath the calm surface above, there is a world where life persists under pressure we will never directly experience. And in that deepest darkness, those soft, almost unreal forms continue to drift, uncrushed, simply different, different enough to make us shiver. Imagine you're watching the submersible's monitor at a depth of 3,000 meters. The lights cast a beam into thick blackness ahead. Suspended particles drift past like dust in a dark room. There is no clear sea floor, no horizon line. And then, a shape appears. Not like a fish, not like a squid, not like a jellyfish in any way you've ever seen. It hovers, transparent. Soft structures unfurl and draw back again. There may be thread-like tendrils. There may be a ribbon-like body. It isn't clear where the head is, or where the tail begins. You stare, scientists stare, and the first question is not, how does it hunt? It's, where does it belong? The deep sea doesn't only hold creatures that terrify us because of their appearance. It also holds creatures that force us to admit something quieter, heavier, that the classification systems we have built over centuries still contain gaps. Since the time of Carl Linnaeus, humans have tried to place every organism into a precise position: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. We believe that if we observe carefully enough, decode enough genes, then all life can be arranged on the tree of evolution. But the deep sea, especially the midwater realm and the abyssal depths, keeps presenting challenges. During many expeditions using ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, researchers have recorded footage of organisms never described before. Some look like jellyfish, yet lack the defining structures of jellyfish. Some have long tendrils like siphonophores, yet their body plans do not match any known group. There are organisms known only through video, no physical specimens collected. At high pressure and great depth, collecting samples without damaging delicate soft bodies is extraordinarily difficult when brought up to the surface. many gelatinous creatures nearly disintegrate. And so we are left with shadows in the data, recorded, observed, but not yet fully classified. Siphonophore, one body or many bodies. One example that continues to unsettle even the definitions themselves is the siphonophore, a group of deep-sea animals related to jellyfish. When you see a siphonophore tens of meters long drifting through the water, you might think you're looking at a single organism, a luminous sea serpent sliding through darkness. Its body seems endless, undulating softly, sometimes releasing blue flashes along its length. In that moment, it appears like a complete, self-contained giant individual, but the truth is stranger and far more complex. A siphonophore is not a single body in the usual sense. It begins as one fertilized egg, but as it develops, it differentiates into many specialized units called zooids. Each zooid is, biologically, an individual, originating from the same original cell line, but taking on a distinct role within the whole. Some zooids contract to generate propulsion, moving the entire structure forward. Some capture prey with tentacles armed with stinging cells. Some digest. Some reproduce. All are connected along a shared axis, sharing nutrients and coordinating their actions in synchronized rhythm. No part can survive independently. If separated, it will not last. Yet the whole does not fully resemble a single individual the way a fish or squid does. It is closer to a superorganism, a biological community fused so tightly that the boundary between individual and collective becomes blurred. When you look at a siphonophore, are you looking at an animal or a colony, a body, or a miniature society? The question has no simple answer. Their form only deepens the strangeness. Some siphonophores can exceed 20 meters in length, and some individuals have been estimated at more than 40 meters, making them among the longest organisms ever recorded on Earth. Their bodies are transparent, soft as liquid glass, with repeating structures arranged in regular sequences along the length. Their tentacles can extend dozens of meters below like an invisible net in the darkness of the deep sea. You won't see those tentacles until a small creature brushes against them, until stinging cells fire toxins in an instant. When a submersible approaches and its light sweep across them, siphonophores may bioluminesce. Blue light pulses along the body, segment by segment, lighting up and fading like a traveling signal. From a distance, it resembles a miniature galaxy drifting through the water. No sound, no urgency, only a vast, soft, living structure hanging in cold darkness. Their hunting strategy reflects the deep sea's signature patience. They do not chase. They do not explode forward with sudden speed. They let the currents carry them, releasing their tentacles like fine lines. When prey collides, the response is almost immediate. The prey is gripped, drawn slowly toward the zooids responsible for digestion. From the outside, you see only a ribbon of gentle light. Inside, it is a precise, efficient system, an elaborate machinery of capture. Siphonophores challenge how we define life. We are used to thinking that an organism is a single body with clear boundaries, a central brain, a unified structure. But here, life organizes itself differently, not entirely one individual, not simply many separate individuals. It exists between those two concepts. In the deep darkness, where sunlight never reaches, A structure tens of meters long can drift past your eyes, soft, luminous, almost unreal. Are you looking at a creature or a community? Perhaps the answer is both, and it is exactly that ambiguity, the breaking of the familiar border between one and many, that makes siphonophores one of the strangest living forms in the deep ocean. Ctenophore, when beauty misleads classification. Ctenophores, also known as comb jellies, have also sparked debate among biologists. They are transparent, soft, and move using rows of tiny hairs called cilia arranged in bands along their bodies. When light hits them, those ciliary bands refract it into brilliant rainbow colors. At first glance, they resemble jellyfish. But the cellular structure and nervous system of ctenophores differ significantly. At one stage, some genetic studies even suggested that ctenophores might represent an animal lineage that diverged earlier than sponges, a claim that would reshape how we understand the evolution of the nervous system. If true, it would mean the nervous system may have evolved more than once independently in the history of life. An idea that shakes the foundations of biology, even though debate and research have continued since. The very existence of ctenophores demonstrates something crucial. Not every organism that looks similar shares the evolutionary origin we assume. Appearance can deceive, and classification is not always clear. In many deep-sea exploration videos, there are organisms labeled only temporarily, unidentified gelatinous organism. Some drift like an inverted umbrella with thread-thin filaments. Others have cylindrical bodies, widening at one end, moving through gentle contractions. Some appear almost perfectly symmetrical, others look distorted, as if they follow no pattern we recognize. No bones, no scales, no clear structures we can rely on. Only soft tissue and motion. And in that deep darkness, they exist, without needing a name in order to keep living. Classification is our tool for understanding the world. It helps us organize diversity into a structure we can manage. But nature is not bound by that need. The deep sea challenges us precisely because its environment is so different that familiar standard templates no longer apply. Not every organism has a clear boundary between head and body. Not every nervous system resembles what we already know. Not every living form can be neatly placed onto the evolutionary tree we have drawn. When we say cannot be classified, sometimes it simply means we do not yet have enough data. We have not collected enough specimens. We have not decoded enough genes. But sometimes it also means life is more flexible than our systems. There is another kind of horror, one that does not come from sharp teeth or jaws that open to impossible widths. It does not require blood, roaring, or violent movement. It is the horror of looking at a living thing and not knowing what you are seeing, not knowing where it belongs on the tree of life, not knowing whether it is closer to jellyfish, to worms, or to some lineage entirely unfamiliar, not knowing whether it is a predator, a scavenger, or simply one small link in a food web we have not finished drawing. That not knowing is not loud. It is quiet and heavy. In the deep darkness, the submersible's lights sweep across ink-black water. Particles drift past the camera. Everything seems still. Then a shape appears. No clear head, no clear eyes, perhaps none at all. It might be a transparent spherical mass with fine strands stretching like spider silk. It might be an inverted umbrella-like structure with soft tendrils trembling in the current. It might be a flattened ribbon-like body, twisting and then unfurling slowly. It hovers, turns slightly. The light passes through it, revealing internal structures we have no words for. No bones, no scales, no organs arranged according to any familiar model. And before researchers can adjust the camera angle or move closer, it drifts away, vanishing into dense blackness. No sound, no trace. Only a video clip and a question mark in the control room aboard the research vessel. Biologists may replay that footage again and again. They zoom in, slow it down, compare it to databases. They search for recognizable features, tentacle structures, symmetry, tissue patterns. Sometimes they find a clue, sometimes they do not. Some organisms are recorded only once. No specimen, no DNA, only an image, and then they disappear from humanity's sight. The horror here is not the monster. It is the void in our understanding. We have mapped the surface of the moon in greater detail than the seafloor of our own planet. Most of the deep ocean has never been explored directly, which means organisms like these may not be rare exceptions, but only one among countless living forms still undescribed. Stop for a moment and consider that. On this planet, just beneath the water we call familiar, there may exist branches of life we have never named, bodies operating by biological logic we do not fully understand, nervous systems, metabolisms, survival strategies not yet written into textbooks. And when the submersible's lights switch off, the darkness closes again. That organism continues to exist, without needing us to know it, without needing to be classified, without needing a place in humanity's diagrams. Perhaps that is what truly makes us shiver, not because they are too terrifying, but because they remind us that what we know is only a small circle, surrounded by an ocean of the unknown. In that deep darkness, life continues to write chapters we have only just begun to read. And sometimes we do not even realize we have opened the book. When we think of the ocean, we often picture sharks, whales, or brightly colored coral reefs. But beneath kilometers of water, there are organisms not yet named, not yet fully classified, not yet understood. They do not need to fit our systems. They do not need to match our diagrams. They exist, and perhaps what makes us shiver is not that they are too terrifying, but that they remind us the tree of life still has branches we have not finished drawing. In that darkness, under crushing pressure and near-freezing temperatures, life continues to write lines we have only begun to read. And sometimes, we do not even know how to pronounce their names. Imagine you are standing on the deck of a research vessel in the middle of the vast ocean at night. Above you, the sky is crowded with stars. But beneath you is a depth of darkness that reflects no light at all. Thousands of meters of cold, heavy, silent water lie between you and the seafloor. We often think of science as a tool that can illuminate every mystery, that with enough time and enough technology, every question will eventually find its answer. But when we face the deep sea, we are forced to admit a different truth. There are places on Earth where science is still taking its first steps. Not because human beings lack intelligence, not because effort is missing, but because this environment imposes real physical limits, limits that cannot be negotiated, cannot be persuaded by curiosity or determination. At a depth of around 1,000 meters, water pressure is already about 100 times greater than what we feel at the surface. At 4,000 meters, that number rises to roughly 400 times. And in the deepest trenches, places like the Mariana, pressure exceeds 1,000 atmospheres, meaning that on every square centimeter of surface, an immense compressive force bears down without pause. That pressure is not loud. It does not roar, but it is always there, pressing on every object from every direction. Ordinary steel can deform. Glass will shatter. The smallest voids within a structure can become fatal weaknesses. This means that every device sent down, whether a crude submersible or a remotely operated robot, must be designed with near-perfect precision. Hulls are often built from specialized alloys or thick titanium. Viewing ports must use materials engineered for extreme load. Every weld is scrutinized with meticulous care. A small structural flaw can lead to catastrophic failure, sometimes to disaster. Building a deep-sea submersible is not a short-term project. It requires years of research, testing, and simulation. Engineers must calculate not only pressure tolerance, but stability, maneuverability, communication systems, power supply, and safety for both equipment and human life. And once the craft is complete, every expedition demands a multidisciplinary team: mechanical engineers, marine biologists, ROV pilots, data technicians, and the crew operating the mothership above. Each descent into the deep ocean, therefore, is not routine. It is a major event, planned down to the smallest detail. Sometimes years of preparation are required for a single expedition campaign, and even when everything goes smoothly, direct observation on the seafloor usually lasts only a few hours. Batteries are limited. Weather conditions at the surface can shift. Every maneuver must be calculated to ensure the vehicle can return safely. Compared with research on land, the difference is stark. A forest biologist can return to the same study area many times a year, set traps, track individuals, observe behavior across seasons. In the deep sea, that flexibility nearly disappears. If a creature appears for only a few seconds on camera and then slips back into darkness, the chance to record it again may not come for many years. Some species have been seen only once in a single expedition, and then vanish from human sight. In addition, controlling equipment at great depth comes with delay and limitations. Signals travel along cables stretching for kilometers. Every movement of a robotic arm collecting samples must be slow and exact. You cannot simply chase a fast-moving animal. And if the vehicle accidentally strikes the seafloor too hard, sediment can billow up, clouding the camera's view completely for minutes at a time. All of this makes every moment of observation at the bottom intensely precious. And it is precisely for this reason that the deep sea does not yield quick answers. Not because science refuses to answer, but because the path to an answer passes through thousands of meters of heavy water, through limits of materials, through long preparation times, and through rare opportunities that last only a few hours inside the ocean's enormous darkness. One reason science still lacks enough answers is simple: we have not seen enough. Estimates suggest that most of the seafloor has not been surveyed in detail through direct observation. Bathymetric maps offer a broad picture of underwater terrain, but they do not reveal every small ecosystem, every narrow ravine, every structure where life might hide. That means the true biodiversity of the deep sea could be far greater than what we have described so far. Even when we do record a strange organism on video, collecting a specimen remains a major challenge. Many deep-sea creatures have bodies that are soft and fragile, with almost no rigid structure when brought to the surface. The sudden change in pressure can distort or destroy their forms. A creature that appears whole and delicate at 6,000 meters may become a warped mass of tissue by the time it reaches daylight. The fine anatomical details, so crucial for classification and study, can vanish in the process. And so there are organisms we know only through video. No tissue samples for detailed analysis. No fully decoded DNA. No data about cell structure or nervous systems. Only brief recordings. In science, naming and describing a new species requires clear evidence and verified specimens. When only video exists, researchers must be careful. They may provide preliminary descriptions, but they cannot rush to conclusions. The deep-sea environment also slows research in another way. Temperatures in many regions hover around 1 to 4 degrees Celsius. Sunlight does not exist in the deep layers. In some areas, oxygen concentration is extremely low. These conditions produce ecosystems where life moves slowly. Many organisms grow slowly, reproduce infrequently, and may live for a very long time. That makes observing an entire life cycle in the wild exceptionally difficult. A species may require years to reach maturity. Tracking reproductive behavior or developmental stages in the natural environment demands patience and technology. We are still refining. In laboratories, recreating deep-sea conditions is not simple. To maintain pressure equivalent to thousands of meters of water, specialized pressure chambers are required, but even if we can simulate pressure and temperature, an artificial setting cannot fully reproduce the complex ecosystem of the deep ocean. Behavior in a laboratory tank may differ from behavior in the wild. This means many questions about ecological interactions, hunting strategies, and communication remain unanswered. The biological classification system we use was built over centuries, first based on morphology and later expanded through genetic data. But the deep sea continually presents cases that are difficult to place. Some organisms look like jellyfish, yet are not typical jellyfish. Some have unusual nervous system structures that raise debates about their position on the evolutionary tree. When data are limited and specimens rare, determining evolutionary relationships takes time and repeated verification. Science itself is inherently cautious. Researchers cannot overturn an entire framework of classification based on a single observation. They must compare multiple specimens, analyze genes, examine tissue structure, and confirm findings through independent studies. In the deep sea, where gathering data is costly and difficult, this process moves far more slowly than it does on land. One sobering reality is that humanity has invested heavily in exploring space, and certain regions on other planets have been mapped in greater detail than large portions of our own ocean floor. That does not mean the ocean has been ignored. It reflects the unique complexity of the deep water environment. Waves, currents, pressure, and salinity create a system far harder to access than the dry surface of another world. Yet saying science does not have answers yet does not mean science is powerless. History shows that many creatures once doubted were eventually confirmed as technology advanced. Capturing footage of the giant squid in its natural habitat is a striking example. ultra-sensitive cameras, remotely operated vehicles, and techniques like environmental DNA analysis, eDNA, are opening new ways to detect and study organisms without physically capturing them. eDNA allows scientists to analyze water samples for traces of genetic material left behind by organisms. This can reveal the presence of a species, even when we cannot see it directly. But this method also has limits. It can tell us it is here, but not its shape, its behavior, or its precise ecological role. Perhaps the most important lesson the deep sea teaches is humility. We are accustomed to naming, classifying, and describing the world around us, but beneath thousands of meters of water, life operates without needing human confirmation. Unnamed organisms still hunt, reproduce, and adapt. Undescribed ecosystems still hold balance in their own way. Science is not a complete list of answers printed in advance in a thick book where every page has already been filled. It is not a collection of fixed, timeless truths. Science is a living process, a continuous journey of asking questions, testing, making mistakes, adjusting, and expanding understanding. Throughout history, many things once considered certain have had to change when new data appeared. Widely accepted assumptions can be refined, sometimes replaced, when observation deepens or technology improves. This does not weaken science. On the contrary, that capacity for self-correction is its strength. Admitting that we do not yet know everything is not failure. It is the first step of any real discovery. If we believed we fully understood the world, curiosity would stop. But when we face the deep sea, with its unclassified organisms, its undescribed ecosystems, its unrecorded behaviors, we are forced to accept that our knowledge is still limited. And that acceptance opens space for research, for experimentation, for the invention of new technology. The deep sea is not an empty space of ignorance. It is not a dark zone because knowledge is absent, but because we have only begun to shine light into it. Every expedition, every water sample analyzed, every brief video capturing a strange creature is a small step into an immense frontier. Unanswered questions are not proof of helplessness. They are signs of potential. Down there are biological mechanisms not yet fully understood, mechanisms that may inspire new applications in medicine or materials science. There are survival strategies under extreme pressure and cold that may help us understand the limits of life itself. There are evolutionary branches not yet fully drawn, branches that could change how we see the history of life on Earth. Science moves forward, not by insisting everything has already been explained. It moves forward by recognizing the gaps in knowledge and patiently filling them, piece by piece. The deep sea, with all its darkness and pressure, is not a symbol of obscurity, but a reminder that the journey of discovery is still long. And in that vast space, where questions outnumber answers, science finds the drive to keep going. As the submersible's lights continue to sweep through darkness, each shape that appears and disappears reminds us how much remains unknown. And it is precisely the presence of those unanswered questions that makes the deep ocean one of the most compelling scientific frontiers on the planet. Science does not yet have every answer, because the journey of exploration is still unfolding, meter by meter of water, expedition by expedition, through brief clips of life recorded in the dark. When people think about fear at the bottom of the ocean, imagination often turns toward jaws packed with sharp teeth, glowing bodies drifting in the darkness, or other creatures warped into unfamiliar forms. But for scientists who have spent years studying the deep sea, what truly weighs on them does not lie in those strange appearances, not teeth, not tentacles, not the blue flashes flickering through black water. What leads them into deeper reflection is the convergence of two things: the emptiness in our understanding, and the possibility that the world down there may be changing faster than we can recognize. For a long time, the deep sea was treated as a realm apart from surface upheaval. At depths of thousands of meters, light vanishes, temperature is often stable, around 1 to 4 degrees Celsius, and life moves so slowly it feels almost motionless. No storms, no surf, no day-night swing like the surface layers. That stability, sustained over millions of years, led many to believe the deep ocean was nearly immune to human influence at the top of the sea. But modern science shows the ocean is not a set of separate layers. It is a complex, connected system. Surface water does not remain still. It sinks, mixes, and travels through massive currents that carry heat and matter around the planet. Warming driven by climate change does not stop at the uppermost layer. Over time, heat can propagate downward. Even if the process is slow and difficult to observe directly, and even a small shift in temperature at great depth can affect the metabolic rates of organisms adapted to an unusually stable environment. Ocean acidification is another factor. As atmospheric CO2 rises, part of it dissolves into seawater and changes pH. The surface feels the impact first, but through ocean circulation, those chemical changes can spread into deeper layers. Many deep-sea organisms have carbonate-based structures, or depend on stable chemical balance in the water. A slow but persistent change can affect shell formation, ion exchange, or even the symbiotic microbial communities they rely on. The primary energy source for many seafloor ecosystems does not come from light, but from marine snow, organic debris made of dead plankton, the waste of pelagic animals, and suspended particles that drift down from the surface. That downward fall can take days or weeks to reach the seafloor at depths of several thousand meters. If the surface layer changes, for example, if plankton populations decline due to warming or altered currents, then the amount of marine snow changes as well. It is like an ecosystem that depends on rainfall, except the rainfall is determined somewhere else entirely. The problem is that we do not yet have enough long-term data to fully understand how sensitive this system is. Deep-sea observatories have only been operating for a few decades, an extraordinarily short span compared with the life rhythms of many deep ocean species. Some organisms may live for decades, even longer, if change unfolds slowly. We may be seeing only a small fragment of a long trend without recognizing the full picture. What concerns scientists is not that they have witnessed an obvious catastrophe happening on the ocean floor. The concern comes from the gaps in data, from the fact that we are watching an immense system through a time window too short to distinguish natural variability from long-term human-driven trends. In an environment that has remained stable for millions of years, even small but continuous changes can carry enormous meaning. The deep sea, then, can no longer be treated as fully isolated. It is the far end of a chain of connections that begins in the atmosphere, passes through the ocean surface, and gradually extends into the abyss. And it is that connectivity, the truth that no layer is truly separate, that makes the scientific community more cautious than ever. Another concern, increasingly immediate, is the extraction of deep-sea resources. Manganese nodules and metal-rich sediments containing nickel, cobalt, and copper draw industrial attention, especially as demand for renewable energy grows. Yet the ecosystems that exist around these structures are still not fully understood. Many organisms cling to the surfaces of mineral nodules, using them as foundations for life. Mining can disturb sediments, creating plumes of particulate clouds that spread over distance, affecting filter feeders and disrupting habitats for long periods. In an environment where ecological recovery may be far slower than on land, a short-term impact can leave consequences that last across generations. What troubles scientists is not technological progress itself, but the possibility that we may intervene in an ecosystem while our understanding of it remains incomplete. The deep sea also holds microbial systems and biological mechanisms so distinctive that we have only begun to glimpse them. Near hydrothermal vents on the seafloor, where superheated, mineral-rich water laden with dissolved metals erupts from Earth's crust. There exist communities of life entirely independent of sunlight, instead of photosynthesis. The energy base of these ecosystems is chemosynthesis. Bacteria use compounds such as hydrogen sulfide, methane, or reduced iron to generate chemical energy. From those single-celled microbes, an intricate web of life forms, giant tube worms, shrimp, crabs, mollusks, each bound to an energy source rising from within the earth rather than falling from the sun. The bacteria and microorganisms there endure crushing pressure, extreme temperature shifts, and chemical conditions toxic to most surface life, to survive. They have evolved proteins and enzymes whose structures remain stable under high heat and pressure. Certain enzymes from these extremophiles have been studied for industrial and biomedical potential, because they can function in environments where ordinary enzymes would denature. This opens tremendous scientific opportunity, but it also reminds us that the biological systems down there are not merely strange. They represent evolutionary branches we still understand, only in small part. What makes scientists careful is the immense microbial diversity that may exist beyond our current descriptions. Environmental DNA analyses suggest that a single sediment or deep water sample can contain thousands of genetic sequences never seen before. Those microorganisms may participate in the global cycling of carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, and many other chemical processes. Yet the specific role of each group remains riddled with gaps. We know they exist. We know they are active. But we do not yet understand the full network of interactions among them and the environment around them. So the scientific fear here is not sensational. It is not fear of something terrifying in appearance. It is caution grounded in the understanding that any complex biological system consists of layered, interwoven interactions. When humans intervene through research, extraction, or environmental change, indirect effects can become difficult to predict if the links are not fully understood. A small shift in one microbial component can ripple through food webs or chemical cycles in ways we may not recognize in time. Alongside this is an even deeper concern, less visible and more unsettling: the limits of human understanding itself. Science operates through models, frameworks built from observation and experiment. They help us simplify reality so we can understand and predict it. But when an environment is radically different from the conditions in which human beings evolved and became familiar, those models may not be flexible enough. In the deep sea, where there is no light, where pressure is high, where energy does not come from the sun, our usual ecological rules may not fully apply. Survival strategies down there, from ultra-slow metabolism to obligatory symbiosis between animals and bacteria, may not fit neatly into traditional frameworks. Some organisms exist through the integration of multiple biological systems, blurring the line between independent individual and symbiotic microbial community. Neural structures, signaling pathways, and developmental mechanisms may diverge sharply from what we know on land. When data remain limited, the risk is not simply that we do not know, it is that we might believe we know enough. What occupies scientists is not the existence of the unknown. Science always begins there. It is the possibility that we may be underestimating the true complexity of deep-sea ecosystems. If our current models capture only a small fraction of reality, then predictions built upon them may be incomplete. And in an environment where ecological recovery may take decades or longer, errors in understanding can carry long-term consequences. The deep sea, therefore, is not only a realm of strange creatures, it is a reminder that life can organize itself in ways that exceed the patterns we are used to. And it is precisely this awareness of limits, the limits of data, of models, of predictive power, that makes scientists approach the deep ocean with a particular humility and caution. Climate change adds urgency. Ocean warming, changes in salinity, and shifts in circulation may influence deep layers over time. Yet long-term monitoring networks in the deep sea remain limited, compared with atmospheric data on land or surface ocean data. Deep water records are far fewer, and the time series are shorter. Many observatories have only operated for a few decades, an extremely brief period compared with the lifespan of some deep-sea organisms. This makes it difficult to separate natural variability from long-term trends. The scientist's concern is not a dramatic image, but the possibility that important changes may be unfolding quietly while our data remain insufficient. Perhaps the most sobering thought is the risk of silent loss in the deep sea. A species never described could decline before we even name it. A small ecosystem around a hydrothermal vent could be altered without baseline data for comparison. Unlike on land, where the disappearance of a large species may be noticed almost immediately, the deep sea can change in silence. This does not produce sensational fear. It produces a heavy sense of responsibility toward what has not yet been known. And so what truly terrifies scientists is not the ocean's darkness, nor the strange glowing animals within it. It is the awareness that we stand before one of the largest and least understood ecosystems on the planet, at the same time that human activity is extending ever deeper into those layers. The fear is not about encountering something grotesque. It is about the possibility that we could alter a system we do not understand well enough to protect. In that deep darkness, the most frightening thing is not sharp teeth. It is scientific and ethical responsibility. The responsibility to explore before we extract. The responsibility to gather data before we decide. And the responsibility to admit that the deep sea remains a frontier of knowledge, where humility matters as much as curiosity. And now we rise, slowly, gently, back toward the surface. The creatures we met tonight are not monsters in the way stories once imagined. They are not villains lurking in darkness. They are survivors, specialists, living answers to conditions we once believed were impossible. The goblin shark's ancient form, the silent drift of the Dumbo octopus, the faint red glow of the dragonfish in water so dark that even light must struggle to exist. These beings are reminders that evolution does not follow our expectations. It follows opportunity. Perhaps the most humbling truth is this: we do not yet know how many more forms of life move below us. Entire ecosystems may exist in silence, never seen, never named. Some may vanish before we ever understand them. And yet, there is something comforting about that mystery. It means our world is still larger than our knowledge, still deeper than our certainty, still capable of surprising us. If you've made it this far, thank you for descending with me tonight. Before you drift off, tell me, where are you listening from? Is it late evening, early morning? I always love seeing how far these quiet journeys travel. Now let your thoughts float upward like bubbles rising through dark water. Let the tension dissolve. The ocean below will continue its slow, patient rhythms. And somewhere, far beneath the waves, life carries on. Good night.